Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of Product Marketing Breakdowns. If you've seen my previous episodes, thanks for coming back. I appreciate your support. If you are new here, welcome. This is the podcast where top product marketers break down their real projects, share insights and tactics so you can apply those in your work today. I'm your host. My name is Chirag. I'm a director of product marketing based in Canada, and I'm a global top 100 product marketing influencer as well. My guest today doesn't need an introduction. She's the leading voice of one of the hottest trends in B2B SaaS today, which is interactive demos. She and I have spoken on a few occasions on LinkedIn, and we've really connected on a few topics. So today, I'm very excited to have her officially on the show. Head of Growth and Product Marketing at Navattic, Natalie Marcotullio. Natalie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Welcome, everyone. Very honored by the title of maybe most knowledgeable about interactive demos. I don't know if that's true, but I can promise I've seen a lot of demos in my day, probably over 1,000 at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's funny you say that because literally last night I was at an event and I was talking to a few other product marketers. That's top of mind for them of how do I make the overall interactive demo experience better? How do I get to value much quicker and so on and so forth? So I think this is super timely and I'm glad that you're on the show.
Well, I love to hear that and always happy to chat demos.
Totally. Okay, so for those of you who don't know about you or haven't heard of you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and where you're currently working?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm head of growth and product marketing at Navattic, which I'll definitely get into a little bit about that. I've always been sort of a startup marketer, especially I've been solo marketer twice now, kind of building up and leading a marketing agent or strategy at different SaaS startups. But I've always sort of like dabbled in product marketing. Being a solo marketer, you sort of just do everything, but I
Hmm.
never really said like, okay, this is going to be my focus. This is going to be my main point of area until this year. So at the beginning of this year, 2025, we really realized we needed to focus more on product marketing. We hadn't had dedicated resourcing for it. It had always been me. And we were debating, do we bring someone in or should I do it? And just given my level of product knowledge, it seemed to make sense. So that's why we stuck on the and product marketing onto my title. And I've been really hyper focusing more on product marketing on top of, a lot of other random stuff being an early stage startup. But been focusing more on product marketing this year.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at a career journey so far, and we spoke about this a few times before. Very interesting to me. You started in growth, expanded to product. Was that you mentioned that was part of your role anyway in some capacity, right? So it just made sense to kind of roll it up. What were those specific things that you were doing in your previous role that obviously now it makes sense to be a bundle under product marketing? What were those few instances where you dabbled into product marketing?
I think in the past I'd always been responsible for like the overall messaging and positioning, a little bit of differentiation and keeping on top of what other competitors are doing. But especially when we first launched Navattic, the game was much more we need to educate the market about what an interactive demo is. And you could argue that's probably some product marketing as well as far as like education and messaging, but it was much less I need to position specific features or kind of explain these multiple features together because no one knew what demos were. So it almost didn't matter the nuances of one platform versus the next if they didn't understand the concept of an interactive demo. So while I was like practicing some messaging positioning skills, and also I was always using Navattic and building interactive demos throughout my role, it wasn't until about like 3 years into me working at Navattic, about like 4 to 5 years into the company existing, we realized, okay, that we're pretty lucky. A lot more people know what demos are. There's still plenty that don't, but we're in a more of that like early majority phase than maybe innovator phase. So now we want to focus more on like how are we different? I think there are like probably honestly like 100 plus players in the space. Like there are so many. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to shift my focus too, because early days growth demand gen was more about like educating the market on demos. Now it's more educating why Navattic.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you mentioned about obviously initially you wanted to convince or at least educate them what interactive demos are in the first place and why should they actually care about it. On one of my previous episodes, I had Robert Kaminsky talk about something similar, and he gave an example of Calendly, right? And they started off obviously a while ago, and now they have gone to a different level. But when they started, they needed to educate the market on why do they even need a scheduler in the first place. And now they've shifted the positioning of why they are the best scheduler out there, right? So it's an interesting space to be in, and obviously your objectives of your messaging are different in both places. So it's an interesting space to be in. One common thread that I see between growth and product is aligning on curating the overall customer experience. I've done that in my previous roles. I'm currently doing it as well, especially during the initial first few interactions that they will have with your product. Has that been your observation too? And how did you kind of approach both of them together?
Definitely. I think especially at Navattic, part of my growth roles, we introduced as a team a freemium motion last year. So
Mm,
thinking about that first time user experience and the messaging around that became even more vital because it wasn't just okay, a sales led motion where you could have a salesperson help out there. It's all in the product. And the way I think about growth and product marketing is I think they complement each other really well. Like growth is really good at running the experiments and figuring out the data or the channels that like how do I get someone into the product? And maybe sometimes just like obsession too much over like testing or all that and sometimes getting a little bit like lose the overall message, right? Like if you're message testing on websites too much, or if you're trying too many experiments, sometimes you're not thinking about the overall user journey or the overall messaging positioning. So that's where I think the product marketing comes in and thinks, I'm not just going to write messaging that's going to get me more leads. I want to make sure that these are like really high quality, they're the right fit people getting into our
mm.
product and know they'll have success because I have sort of that like full funnel picture.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, how were you doing this before you rolled up within product marketing as well? Like, how was that happening for you before you made that switch?
I'd say I was still thinking about it. Like ultimately at Navattic,
Mm,
I am responsible for pipeline.
sure.
At the end of the day, I'm always thinking about, how can I make sure that I'm bringing in high quality leads, prospects, and also just like, well, best educating our audience. But I just wasn't maybe as like intentional. I feel like now two different things. One is I am a lot more responsible for thinking about like every time we release a new feature, what is that first time user experience like?
Mm,
And then how do we get our customers and prospects excited about
mm,
it? On the past, I didn't I think about it, but it just wasn't as intentional. I didn't have a process around it. And I also think being a product marketer, I'd always sort of tried to been a little bit of like the voice of our audience. I'm pretty lucky where I kind of am our ICP. Like I'm a marketer, we sell to marketers a
sure.
lot. I go to as we were talking about before this, I go to a lot of events.
Mm,
So I'm often with them. And even being the product marketer, I felt like more let me speak of like I'm no longer just defending this because it's my idea. Like almost a little bit like I feel like I'm being the voice of our audience.
yeah. Yeah, it's a great place to be in where you understand the ICP so well because you are the ICP, in fact. Then it obviously helps, which is awesome. Um, I know there are a few of my other professional colleagues here in Toronto who have been debating with switching over from a sales led to a product led motion. It's not the easiest transition. It can be a mess if you don't do it properly, and it's a long process as well, especially when the product that you're actually selling is more technical, it's more complex. If it's something more self-serve and people can easily understand, then your PLG transition is much easier. But something which is much more technical, has a longer sales cycle, has five people as a buying committee, as an example, it becomes very difficult to kind of make that gap, in my experience. Would you say it's something similar for you as well?
So we did do that transition. Yeah. After 3 years of being sales led at Navattic, we went PLG. I think I think it is a slightly more difficult, but what's great about being sales led first is you have so many insights already about like what your buyer cares about, what they're looking for, how to message to them, like what are the most important aha moments or not. Like what's hard is if you start PLG, you can only really get that through data. Maybe you
Mm,
do user interviews, but you just probably don't know your users and customers as well. So on one hand, it is harder because you're so used to being able to have a person to sort of supplement if they're, if the product isn't as intuitive or if you have to walk through things. But on the other hand, you have a pretty good idea going into it. And I would talk to your
mm,
sales team and your CS team being like, what's frustrating, what's not. The hardest part is really like when you're sales led, usually, you have happy customers, they love your product. Again, you've been able to like handhold them through them, really being critical. Because it's not even like if this product is good or bad, it's is it obvious in some ways? Is that first time user experience obvious? And it took us a while, and we still have a lot of improvements to make sometimes with our
mm,
onboarding experience. But we actually experimented for 9 months behind the scenes, going from a product that was not PLG or optimized at all for that first time user experience to every like 2 weeks making a new change, making a new experiment, getting feedback, seeing what's working, see what's not working. So by the time we launched, we at least knew we were hitting industry benchmark standards for what activation rate should be. So it's like, okay,
mm,
we know this is maybe not like the best in-class onboarding experience. We still just launched, but we know it's working. And I think a lot of people think they can just like add a free trial to their product, turn it on, and suddenly it's
It's not
PLG,
easy. Yeah.
and don't think about like, oh no, I have to entirely rethink how a user goes through this first time experience because they don't have someone walking them through it.
Yeah, 100%. It can get messy. It can, as you said, it's all very data driven. If you have those data insights available to make that decision, then the transition's easier. But if not, then you're pretty much shooting in the dark. So, okay, I love that. I want to move on to the next section, which I like to call the breakdown, which is one of the things that kind of sets this podcast apart, where I asked you to bring an example of any project that you have led in the past and just walk us through what that looked like and just share some context with that. So I'll hand it over to you and you can walk us through that example.
Yeah, I was excited to share this example because I thought it was like a really good mix of that concept of both product marketing and growth. Product marketing definitely inspired the insight and the idea for it, which I'll get to in a second, and growth helped me like actually make it happen. So last year, or actually, sorry, beginning of this year, we launched what we called an AI storyboard generator. And here I'm going to share my screen now. Here we go. And basically, this came from a pain that we kept hearing again, talking to customers around. It's really sometimes painful to outline or what we called storyboard a demo. I think it's kind of like the same in college when you had to like outline an essay. Like you knew how important it was, but it kind of was always painful.
Sure, sure.
Um, and so even though we knew it was a best practice, if you want to make sure that your demo is performing well, you want to think about the story you're telling. I think one of the biggest mistakes we see in interactive demos when people will just default to being like, click here, then click here, rather than telling a product story.
The actual story, yeah.
So we wanted to create a way to make it super easy to create that storyboard outline that you can then use to feed into your demos. And it being the beginning of this year, obviously, like AI is very hot. It can do a lot of these types of generative things for you. So we were thinking, why not be able to repurpose an asset you already have, super proud of, something like a landing page, and then turn that into an interactive demo script. So I can show it off here. We were talking about how HubSpot just released this awesome new ChatGPT integration, which I haven't tried yet, but I'm excited to try. So I pre-generated it because it does take like 30-ish seconds to load. But basically what you do is you pop the link in here, hit generate storyboard. And then this is the output that you'll get. Essentially, it's taking, again, the copy from your existing landing page. So you know it's on brand, you know it's value driven because it's from a landing page. It's not it's not like a support article or something that might be more how-to. And it's also applying our best practices. So another kind of piece of product marketing and growth thing that I do is we do a lot of reports, like really long form reports. You were part of one of the reports we did this year, which was awesome. Yeah. Another one that we do at the beginning of the year, every single year, is we look at the top 1% of interactive demos built on Navattic, and we see what they have in common. So this storyboard isn't just based off of your messaging and value prop, but we've also layered in best practices, like how long should it
some learnings from those, yeah.
Exactly. How many steps total should the demo be? All that is already like built into this as well, so you don't have to worry. Am I creating a storyboard that's already optimized?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then diving into what it actually looks like, you'll see the first step here. It recommends, this is some Navattic specific terminology, but it recommends a modal, which is essentially just like a center screen pop-up at the beginning of your demo. And you'll see that, again, we're pulling language right from the HubSpot landing page, and it is very value-driven. It's not like, click here to set up your ChatGPT integration.
You're not starting from scratch at all in this case.
Exactly. And we basically walk you through every single step.
That's so cool.
Text should you use for that step of the demo? We even say, like where, like this, we're saying the integration setting panel, where suggested places should be showing on that screen, or where you should be putting these text callouts. Going a little further down, we'll even suggest, like within interactive demos, we actually suggest you put CTAs throughout, not just at the end. So you'll see here, we even suggest like step 4, why not maybe like throw an optional CTA to see some examples. And then at the very end, we'll have, these ones are still loading, but at the very end, we'll have like another CTA to go book a demo or try for free.
Interesting. In this case, so you mentioned about adding CTAs throughout the process as well and not just at the end. Are you noticing any drop-offs in that case?
What we typically notice is for interactive demos, you want it to be between like honestly like 8 to 15 steps. We do notice drop off really significantly around like 8 steps. So that's why we say sometimes put a CTA at step like 5. And you can do a dual CTA. So you can have one that says like, I've seen enough, let's book a demo, or keep going in the
Sure.
interactive demo.
Okay, give them the choice of deciding the journey that they want to take.
Exactly.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah. And last thing I'll call out, and this was definitely the growth portion of this too, is if you hit this generate demo from Storyboard, it's actually going to take you to sign up for Navattic, and you're then going to be in a workspace that has this all pre-populated in a demo. So all this script will go straight into your Navattic workspace. That again is very much like the growth side of how do I also use this free tool, not just for customers and prospects as a way to speed up sometimes a painful part, which is kind of like the product marketing enablement side, but also this is going to get us more free trials. And the goal is like more activated free trials because they already have a template to start out with or a script to start out with. They're not starting from nothing.
And I would imagine this is a freemium model in this case. Someone can come in, just plug in a URL, see how it looks, and then that leads to either starting a trial or buying a Navattic license, right?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
freemium, so you can actually build one demo entirely free forever. You don't have to like, there's no cap on it. So this is just helping you start building that first one free demo.
Gotcha. Yeah, low barrier to entry, immediate value, and then that helps you obviously speed up your conversion sales process or conversion process after that point. So, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to definitely give this a try and share this with a few folks.
And I think to give a quick just like shout out to my team here,
Hmm.
we actually, what was also really cool about this is we've had this idea for a while. Like we've known storyboarding's been painful. And a member of my team actually kind of like vibe coded the V1 of this. And then we did a lot of testing. We brought an engineer. We made sure the prompt was better. But I think it's also cool to show like as a product marketer, growth marketer in the past, I feel like you have so many ideas that require just like a little bit of engineering resourcing. And having that V1 that we vibe coded was like, oh, look, like you can actually kind of see what we're talking about and got us a lot more buy-in than if we just like try to pitch the idea to them.
Yeah, something visual for them to see, something to react to. It always helps.
Exactly. And to test out and see the value.
Yeah,
It was a lot
yeah,
uglier
totally.
than what I just showed and works not as frequently, but still just like something to be like, this is what we have in mind.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. I really like this example. I'm going to give it a try for sure. And I remember when I used to build out product tours, I've built out a few in my time as well. You're right. Storyboarding itself was the biggest pain point. And initially, when I started out, I would literally have step one, click here, step two, click here, do what you said, right? And then I realized this is not intuitive. They can actually do that themselves, right? It's not the guidance that I want to give them. I want to rather guide them to getting the actual value out of it much quicker. And yeah, I think this is definitely solves a pain point. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, love to hear. And that's exactly right. It's just kind of framing that mindset of like, this is a story versus this is a tutorial.
Totally. Yeah. Awesome. Um, you recently ran a report as well.
Yes.
I'd love to get into that. Love to hear some learnings that you had from that, and yeah, maybe share something with the listeners as well.
Yeah, we can do example number 2. So I touched on reports and again mentioned that you were so awesome, incredible to be part of this one. But basically here, I'll share my screen again. Thanks everyone for bearing with me as I'm sharing a lot of tabs here. There we go. But this is a report we've run for 3 years in a row. And again, kind of on like the growth side, it's a partnership play as well. So we partner with Chili Piper. This year, we also brought in the win-loss agency, Buried Wins, because from a partnership perspective, first of all, it means like 3 people helping do the work. It usually makes the
Sure.
report better when it's not just you. Also, obviously, more distribution. Again, a little more thinking on that growth side. How can I get this more people? On the product marketing side, we know that what a lot of times prospects come in is the marketer themselves will be really excited about the idea of demos. Like they know showing their product is going to help website conversions, going to help them get more qualified leads. But oftentimes, maybe their boss or their head of sales has some hesitancy about showing the product on their website and being that transparent. So we wanted to create a report that helped you kind of make the case for like why buyer transparency, we're calling like buyer first, is not just necessary, but also like what your buyers are sort of demanding in 2025. We did very intentionally want to make this a step above demos. Like we could have done this report just about like, why is it good to show your product? But we thought it would be more one, trustworthy and just also like useful as a piece of content if we did layer it up to this bigger concept of like buyer first.
The overall buying journey and different touch points that you have, how do you want to optimize that?
Exactly. We sort of break it down to these three themes of usable, accessible, visible. Usable is the concept of how easy is it for buyers to get hands-on with your product. That's obviously the interactive demo part.
Yes.
Accessible, how quick and easy is it for buyers to book time with the sales team? That's a little more where Chili Piper comes in. And then we throw in pricing because this is a hot debate and everyone wants information about whether or not you should show pricing on your website. And we look at the top 100 B2B SaaS companies. Here, I'll go to this chart. And we see every single year for the past 3 years, basically how buyer first are these. So, which of these practices they adopt. And we did see that like it was a smaller increase in the first year, but overall, these top 100 B2B SaaS companies are getting better about showing their product, showing their pricing, and then making it easy to schedule time with the sales team.
Love it. And yeah, you mentioned about pricing as well. That was the thing that I actually contributed to as well in the report, and I agree. Biggest hot topic. It divides opinions, in my opinion, right? Um, but yeah, I'm on the side of at least showing that if you don't want to show the actual pricing, at least show how what you do to calculate it. What are the factors that come in?
I
So
think I told you this, but you actually changed my opinion on pricing. Wait, also,
yeah.
let's see if we can find your video. It should be, we also embedded actual, there we go.
Oh, who's that guy?
Fun little shout out for the audience. But we actually did look at, here, sorry, we actually added in videos as well this year, showing buyers like you what you think. So it wasn't just our opinion of the data. But as I mentioned, you changed my opinion on pricing because in the past, I was sort of always under the impression of like either have a pricing page or don't. Like, don't have a pricing page that doesn't actually show pricing because that might be more frustrating for a buyer to see that there's a page that says plans but without pricing. But I really liked your point of like, just give me something, like something I can base it off of, get an idea, make a pitch to. So after this report, I'm in camp. Some
Yeah,
information is better than none.
I'm glad. I'm glad I was able to get you on that side. Love it. Okay, this was awesome. Natalie, let's move on to section 3. I like to call that section tool talk. And is there any specific tool, again, obviously not being biased to Navattic, but apart from Navattic, is there any specific tool that you see the most value in and that you use day in and day out?
So not necessarily day in, day out just yet, but I'm getting better about it. But I wanted to give a shout out to a tool I use called GetWhys. It's like GET and then WHYS. Because every time I say it, people think wise. But what I really like about it is I think at this point, we all know like we have to be using AI to be helping us write messaging, test messaging, like at least for my own self. It's just felt with the amount of things that we're expected to do now, and especially product marketing, how many like releases we're having, it doesn't feel feasible to do it without some help. But I think we've all experienced just like going into ChatGPT, even if you're like, I'm a product marketer selling to this persona and this is their pain points, it still sometimes feels kind of made up. Obviously, if it's hallucinating or just like doesn't feel like it really understands your audience. What I really like about GetWhys is they actually started as like a user research agency. So the people who founded the company, they have been researchers for years. That was their full-time job where they would conduct a buyer, kind of like, funny enough, kind of like what we did with the
Red
buyer,
wins,
yeah,
right?
the buyer
Yeah.
interviews we did for the report. So they have a huge database of a bunch of interviews from different buyers about like, why'd you buy this software? Why did you like about this one? Or even just like, hey, you're a product marketer. What are your day-to-day pain points? And then you can like prompt that and their database. So rather than if you're doing this exercise in ChatGPT, again, you don't always know where the data is coming from or how legitimate it is. What I like to hear is you can prompt it, and not only does it obviously reference real interviews, but it will give quotes. You can't always see the exact person, obviously for privacy reasons, but you can see like, hey, a mid-marketing manager at a 100-person B2B SaaS company with this title said this specific thing about the thing you're querying. And it just feels a lot more accurate and actionable sometimes than,
Trustworthy as well,
yeah,
because it's
honestly, biggest,
citing directly the quote that from that person as well.
exactly.
Interesting. And so they would have their own first party data pool of all the interviews, could be video, whatever, transcripts, and so on. And you can go in and you can literally ask questions and it will pull citations or pull sources from that.
Exactly. And they're also
Nice.
working on the ability to import in your own interviews and like grain clips. Because I found that sometimes where I want to segment it with like my own knowledge. So not you get both their third party interviews, but you can also do your own if you have something like Gong or any of those recording tools, and you also want to get quotes from that.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely going to something that I'm interested in, so I'll take a look at them. And again, for listeners, if they want to check out GetWhys, GetWhys, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. You spoke about the specific features that you love about it. Um, since you're a product marketer, they reached out to you as well. When you were interacting with them, or when you were in the process of buying this product, what aspect of their product marketing activities influenced you to either to try it or to actually end up buying it as well?
Yeah, I do want to shout out one more feature before I answer that because there's one other part because it's kind of cool. It's like a two parts. The other half is they have this product line called Echo, which you
Mhm.
can almost build a persona and then run copy by it or run ad ideas. So not only can you like prompt to get ideas about your persona, you can have a built-in persona and then also get feedback, and it will reference the interviews being like, oh, this is too vague. In this interview, product marketers said that they really like specificity. um, that's another cool feature I wanted to
Oh,
call
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah,
So, based on the sentiment or based on the way that those interviews are have gone, you would be able to add a piece of content and say, "Hey, would this resonate with those people?"
exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So had to include that in there.
Yeah.
But I think for like what product marketing aspect really grasped me when I was buying, honestly, so much of it is their story. I being working in startups, seeing a lot of cool new tech as part of my job, because like I look at all these demos, I feel like I have a bias that the companies that had a real pain that they were trying to solve or really understand the space are some of the best products or some of the best founders because you just know it better than I've heard a lot of stories of just like, hey, I was looking for an idea. So honestly, what sold me the most was their story. The fact that they had both been doing user interviews for years before this, that they
Hmm.
realized it was a pain point. It wasn't like they were I feel like so many AI companies start with the AI and then solve the problem. I really like that they knew the problem in and out and then
Hmm.
used AI to help out. So, like, kind of the basics, but
Yeah.
honestly, like a really good founding story and a really good why often gets me.
I love that, and that really is very timely because literally last evening I was at an in-person event and I was on a panel, and I mentioned the same thing. And I said that given the onslaught of AI that's currently going on, and you mentioned vibe coding as well before, so with tools like Lovable, Riplet, and so on, uh, your product or your product features aren't your moat anymore, in my opinion. Right? That's gone because the barriers have come crashing down. So the moat is actually your storytelling, right? You may have the same product as someone else, but how well can you stitch that entire narrative? How well do you understand the space? How well do you link your product features to the actual value that a buyer might care about? So that stitching that entire narrative, I think, is your moat going forward, right?
Because it's even funny with this example, like in theory, ChatGPT can do the same somewhat actions. Like if you
Hmm.
configured it enough, built your own GPT. But part of it was that I trust that they're going to be developing for what I need because they really understand me as a persona.
Hmm.
And also it was, came out of the box. I didn't feel like configuring ChatGPT in that way. And I still don't think, as I mentioned before, the data would have been as trustworthy or as easy to use. But it is it is funny how like in theory now I could build this myself, but much more was the story and the reason of why they built it, which was like I want to partner with these people.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that. Okay, I'd like to move along to the next section, which I like to call behind the scenes. Um, are you able to shed any light on what projects you're currently leading? What's top of mind for Natalie right now?
Yeah, so I definitely thinking about launches a lot. Like the past 6 months, I think that's been one of the biggest things I've had to figure out because I also coming from more of like the first few years around education and brand, I'm always kind of hesitant around I just don't want to be like, hey, look, we have this feature now. Isn't it so cool? But sometimes part of the reason I went to product marketing is we got the feedback from our customers sometimes like, I didn't know you had all these features. So
Hmm.
still trying to find a balance. But not
Yeah,
surprisingly, behind the scenes, I am working on a launch right now. And it's gonna come out probably when this podcast comes out. It's coming out next week, so I can talk about it or before this podcast, but we launched the ability to do A/B testing native in Navattic, so you can test one demo versus another. And so
nice.
behind the scenes for the past like month, I've been running a bunch of A/B tests on our homepage website, and we want to do sort of like a Gong S style, write up of okay, here are the things we tested. This is why we tested. Here are the results. Here's how you can replicate this test in Navattic now. And then we're also going to do some content around okay, here are like here's an example, some examples of really great A/B tests, whether with demos or not, just like kind of telling the story of the value of them, some just like trying to spark ideas around A/B tests, and then obviously through in we can do this natively now, but trying to have the focus be more about the results of the tests and the learnings rather than just like, look, we have A/B testing now.
Oh, that's very interesting, and always giving a context of why you are building this out always adds that weightage and that extra mileage rather than just saying, hey, look, we have this. It's more around creating the story of why we build this, what went behind building this, and just sharing your lens to it. So I'm a big fan of that as well. Um,
Exactly. And just trying to layer in some best practices and data. Like we've
Totally.
just seen time and time again. If we can share, like not only just like, again, we're building this, but this helps you get like see better optimize your demos, or here's what we tried and this is what worked.
Awesome. Okay, final stretch. Last final thoughts from you. What excites you most about product marketing? And obviously, now that you have merged growth and product, what excites you the most about this? And what do you think the future holds for this function, in your opinion?
I think what excites me is also kind of similar to what the future holds is one thing I've been really impressed as I've been getting more into product marketing and talking with product marketers is I do think they're some of the best marketers. Sorry, every other marketer out there, but working like cross functionally and really expanding their scope. Like the amount of things a product marketer does is always just insane to me. And I sort of knew it selling to the persona, but starting it, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of different things you can be constantly managing, prioritizing. So I think you have to be really good at obviously working cross functionally, being able to prioritize, communicating a vision or mission. And what's exciting to me is those all seem like skills that, not to again with the AI of it all, but like that are going to become way more and more popular
Mhm.
and just kind of necessary in an age where like a lot more like tactical things can be automated. So I'm sort of excited. I've already seen the like influence of product marketing growing and growing. Like I've the past few conferences I'm at, I feel like I'm hearing more people being like, I need product marketers. There's some of my best people on my team, or the trend of like seeing more product marketers becoming CMOs. So
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm kind of excited for product marketers out there. I feel like this is kind of their moment to shine where their skill sets will be really necessary in this new age of work.
I totally agree, and it's definitely a space which is growing. More and more people are even getting into product marketing
Yeah.
from different spaces. Like I talk to so many product marketers. Some of them have either been developers in a past life, some have been in sales, some have been in ops, and everyone kind of find their way into product marketing in some way. And it goes to show, because as you said, the value that we are bringing right now and the number of things that we do on a day-to-day basis is incredible, and the value that we bring is unmatched. um, Last question: how can people reach out to you?
This is not surprising. I'm on LinkedIn a little too much.
we,
So
we,
feel
we
free.
talk we talk a bit on LinkedIn as well, you and me, so.
Exactly. I always I like have to have dedicated times throughout the day to check it, or else I'll just like be on it all day. But I'm on there too much. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat growth, product marketing, demos, all the above.
Yeah, and I can confirm she is very great at responding, very prompt. You and I have had conversations on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, Natalie, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. I learned quite a bit as well with the examples that you showed. And yeah, I'm excited, and I hope people and listeners find some value in this and hope they reach out to you. So thanks so much.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.